Stole her a happy birthday as well. So I'm going to teach you a couple of phrases this morning, and it's okay if you don't learn them right away. In about 2 days, this sermon will be posted on YouTube, and you can go back and review. But for the time being, I just want to teach you a couple of phrases. The first phrase you might already know, and that is if somebody says to you, Shalom Aleichem, your response should be Aleichem Shalom. It's a simple one. We start with the easy. If you have an aliyah to the Torah, and when you've completed that, you walk down, people will say to you, Yasher Koch. Your response should be Baruch Tihiyeh. Those are easy. It's getting a little more complicated because there are other phrases. So, for example, we're coming up on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The common phrase for saying hello for Rosh Hashanah is Shana Tova. The response to Shana Tova is Gemar Chatima Tova. May you be inscribed for the good. The greeting for Yom Kippur usually is Tzom Kal, which means have an easy fast, to which you say, thank you. When you move into Sukkot, you say the phrase Chag Sameach. Then the person who hears Chag Sameach is supposed to respond, Moadim L'Simcha. Right? It should be a joyful moment. The response to Moadim L'Simcha is Chagim Uzmanim L'Sason. May we continue to have these joyful celebrations. Those are the easy ones. If you meet somebody who is pregnant, you shouldn't really say Mazel Tov, though that's what we most commonly say. What you really should say is B'sha'at tova umutzlachat. May it come at the right time and be successful. B'sha'at tova umutzlachat. Umutzlachat. You just go back to the video. I did write an article once in which I laid out all of these. The reason why we have so many good phrases is because we as Jews are sometimes lacking for what to say. I had to wait for that one. Sometimes you can't tell I'm sarcastic. But the truth is that different circumstances require different phrases. And sometimes, as people, we don't know what to say in the right moment. Sometimes we're at a loss for words. So, for example, when you see somebody who has lost a loved one, in English we say, I'm sorry, or I'm sorry for your loss. Sometimes I go further and say, my heart goes out to you. But the Jewish tradition says, you say, Hamakom yinachem etchem betoch sha'ar ve'lei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. As Moshe taught us this week, as he eulogized his father-in-law. May this place help you to find some comfort. Of course, Hamakom there is actually referring to God as Hamakom. May God comfort you. But that's what we say to people who have lost a loved one. Because we don't always know what to say when we're confronted by grief and suffering. I once heard my father say to a woman whose mother was dying, he said the phrase, may God be gentle with her. And that I have incorporated into my vocabulary because it's so perfect a phrase to say. If you're at a loss for phrases in your life that you're supposed to use at the right moment, I would recommend that you listen or watch on Netflix a new piece that has been put there by an author, by a TED Talk specialist, by a PhD, by a social worker. Her name is Brené Brown. And if you haven't watched any of her stuff, you should watch it. I watched an hour and a half. It was worth it. And it's more worth it to watch it with someone that you are in love with, that you have a relationship with, in which you want to continue to grow in that relationship. Because in it, she gives us phrases to say so that we can pause for a moment and gather our thoughts. Because sometimes the silence is too difficult and we need to fill the silence with a phrase. The phrase I learned from her this week is, the story I'm telling myself is, because we all tell ourselves stories. And it forces us to ask ourselves the question. But there are so many better questions to ask ourselves in a moment of insecurity. And that is, why do I feel this way? When did this feeling start? What purpose does this feeling serve? We all have good phrases that we say, both to ourselves and to other people, because what it does is it gives us the vocabulary to understand the thoughts and the feelings that we have. And it's our job as humans to teach each other those phrases so that we give each other the gift of being able to understand better the moment. That's exactly what happens in this morning's Parashat in one location. We have tithed for the first time, says the Torah. We have arrived in the land of Israel. And we can imagine what it must have felt like for that first generation of people who made it to the promised land after living in the desert off the food that God provided. For the very first time, being able to do it themselves. They've cultivated the land themselves for the first time. They recognize their capacity, their ability. And they bring forth an offering to God, and they don't have the language to say exactly what's in their heart. Sometimes gratitude can't find expression in words. And so the Torah says, Ve'anita ve'amarta lifnei Adonai Elohecha. Say this phrase. Now I have to be honest with you. Whenever somebody says to me, say this phrase, I get a little bit upset. I don't like to be scripted. Now truthfully, there have been many moments in which I have said to other people, and I've heard it more often than I've said it, what do you want me to say? You've heard that. You've been in that circumstance. What is it that you want me to say? Sometimes it's a little more with levity when we're asked, how do I look in this? But sometimes it's amidst a very serious argument in which two people can't figure out what's the right thing to say, and one says, what is it that you want from me? What do you want me to say? So being scripted sometimes is painful, but it is an acknowledgement that I'm at a loss for words. So many people stay away from synagogue because they don't know what to say. When they come to these pews, they look in the Siddur and the Hebrew doesn't flow. And sometimes the English readings sound a little stilted. And sometimes we just don't know how to interact with one another. Certainly after we've been apart for so long, we don't really know how to greet each other anymore. You can't really hug. You want to shake hands. You end up with a fist bump or an elbow touch. But we don't know what to say to each other. So the Torah says sometimes it's okay to be scripted. It says, Ve'anita ve'amarta lifnei Adonai Elohecha. If you come to shul and you don't know what to say, here are some words. Say Good Shabbos. Say Shabbat Shalom. Or put them together like my daughter did when she was 7 years old and say Shabbabis. Our tradition tells us what to say in those moments. But it's the Shnei Luchot HaBrit, the Rabbi Isaiah Levi Horowitz, who says something so beautiful on this phrase, Ve'anita ve'amarta Adonai Elohecha. This is what you should say. And then you hear these words, Arami Oved Avi. My father was a wandering Aramean. You know that phrase, right? You know it because it's inserted in our Pesach Haggadah. And that forces the Shnei Luchot HaBrit to think about that moment. And he says, wow. He says, Mi she'eino lamot nikra tam. A person who doesn't know what to say is considered simple. And therefore, what you have to do is exactly what the Haggadah says. Start them off. Start them off. Says the Shnei Luchot HaBrit on this verse of Ve'anita ve'amarta lifnei Adonai Elohecha, this is what you should say. The Shnei Luchot HaBrit says, take somebody by the hand and walk them in. Give them the phrases to start the conversation. They'll be okay once it gets going. This week's Parashat explains to us so simply, we're all at a loss for words at certain times in our lives. We're never going to always have exactly the right words. And therefore, it's okay to take somebody else by the hand and walk them through it. Say, I've been there. I know what it feels like. I can tell you what to say. I remember when I went with my father to my first Shiva Minyan, I said to my father, what am I supposed to say? And he said, say nothing. It's okay to say nothing until you have the right words. And if you know what the right words are, then take someone else by the hand and bring them in. I wish this was a message that I could give to everybody in our shul. You're all welcome. We want you here. We'll find a safe way for you to be here in this difficult time. Somebody out here, take someone's hand and bring them in. That's our job. Be bold. Be courageous. Take the initiative and take someone by the hand and bring them in. And if it's not shul, bring them into your home and say, this is what Shabbos dinner is all about. This is what a Chag meal tastes like. This is how you say Kiddush. This is how you make Hamotzi. Be bold and courageous and put yourself out there and then bring someone else back in. Shnei Luchot HaBrit teaches us so beautifully. When it comes to Yiddishkeit, we're all a little trepidatious. We're all wondering if we're going to say the right things, stand at the right times, sit at the wrong times. It's the best part of being a rabbi, right? I just get to say, please rise, you may be seated. It lets people know what they're supposed to do. I wish that we could all feel so comfortable in shul that we didn't need a script. I wish we could all feel so strong that we could bring other people in without feeling as though they're going to find out that we're a fake or a phony. I wish we had the confidence to be able to open our doors wide and bring everybody else in and allow them to sit next to us shoulder by shoulder as we show them what page we're on and what words we're saying. And until that time happens, I pray everybody finds the quiet to be able to find their own words. Shabbat Shalom. We continue with page 184, the Chatzi Kaddish. Please rise.